Hi everyone, welcome to our Claris FileMaker training course on how to build a custom CRM in 30 days. This training is designed primarily for beginners or those of you who need kind of a refresher with the Claris FileMaker platform. Over the course of 30 days, we're going to spend about an hour each day covering topics from the very basics of the Claris FileMaker platform in terms of the tools, the products, deployment, security, all those things you need to know about as you build a custom application. So keep in mind that towards the beginning of the training, the topics are more basic in nature. And as we get towards the end of the training, they're somewhat more advanced, I would say probably intermediate level topics. Now keep in mind this special part of this training is that while we're not only talking about the FileMaker platform, we're talking how you can rapidly customize an existing free CRM that you can download today. It's unlocked. So taking that CRM and customizing it to your organization's particular needs. Now, a couple important links to keep in mind. One is that if you need a copy of FM Starting Point, the free Unlock CRM, visit fmstartingpoint.com and press the button, and then our system will shoot you an email with the current links to that CRM. If you're looking for additional FileMaker training, visit fmtraining.tv and press the bundles button, and that will allow you to get more of this highly animated and somewhat energetic training material to help you through the learning process with the Claris FileMaker platform. Lastly, if you have questions about the FileMaker platform or you're looking for some additional help, maybe some one-on-one coaching help, feel free to email us at support@rcconsulting.com.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our live stream, our daily live stream at fmtraining.tv, where actually today we are continuing our series, our fantastic series. Oh, okay, there we go. I'm going to have the lovely Calvin in a corner here. Hello, Mr. Calvin. Today we are going to be continuing our series on how to build a CRM in 30 days for beginners, or as like a refresher course if you need it. If you're like, it's been a while since I've done this, or if you just kind of like, it's been a while since I've done the basics, I like to go back through. We're here for all of that. That's what we're discussing today. Specifically focuses on document management. So if you're like curious about the nature of containers and little things that you might have missed or dropped, we're here to talk about that today. Or if you're totally new to containers, you're like, I don't know what to do. We're discussing that. Calvin is a wonderful senior engineer who has worked for RCC for 10 years. He is fantastic. He has helped us with a lot of training over the years. He knows his stuff. Richard is currently out for today. He might be back tomorrow. He might not be. Either way, Calvin is here today to help us with documents and containers and all that jazz. So he's absolutely fantastic. So with that being said, and I don't think I see any beginning questions from people anywhere. No, I think we're good. I'm going to stop sharing and pop over to Calvin's screen. So Calvin.
Okay. So today we're looking at containers, and we're going to take an overview and look at some of the settings, some of the options for making the containers as fast as possible. If you don't know what a container is, a container field is a special kind of field that is used to hold, you might think of as attachments. It can be a file, an image, a PDF, any kind of file, like something you might attach to an email. Let me go ahead and show my screen, and you should see my screen now.
Yes, we do.
So let's go ahead Richard has this outline to go through, and they had we recently did a container demo, and we got to talk about all the things I wanted to talk about for containers, but Richard pointed out some really interesting other things about performance that I missed in my demo. So we're going to kind of go back and forth with where they overlap, and then show the things that he points out. So what can you put in a container? You can put photos, videos, sound, MP3s, documents, PDFs, any binary fields of any type. You can put those into a container field. And you'll see this is a field I have on my layout. If we go into Manage Database, the type is set as container. And so that's where we're getting how we're defining that container. Now, for performance, you want there is a potential. I was just talking to somebody today, and they said, our database runs really slow, and we think it's because all of the containers are stored internally. And that would be a reason why it is running really slow. So one thing that you want to look at is what the storage settings are for your container. Let me go ahead.
I do want to ask a question. What is an internal versus external storage?
Yeah, so we're going to take a look at that. So let's go ahead and open up the container field options. And under storage, we have options of where we want to store this file. So if the default is to store internally. And when we say internally, we mean storing inside the FP12 file or outside the FMP12 file. So I just changed this to internal. I'm going to say OK. And let me go ahead and save this. It'll ask me if I want to transfer. I'm going to say transfer. There was nothing to transfer, so OK. So here's my RCC demo container file. You'll notice there's no folders next to it. Now, let me go ahead and put an image in here. I'll just grab this RCC team photo, and you'll notice that it is stored in here. Oh, you know what? Let me go ahead and try one. See one other thing. Now, we'll notice in the demo folders, this team is actually, let's do this one. It's 11 megabytes. Well, that's pretty large. And the size of our file is only 2.9 megabytes. Let me drag this over and put this one in. And there is me and Richard goofing off at DevCon. And let's go ahead and open up this RCC demo folder again. And you'll notice the size of the FMP12 file just jumped from about 3 to 18. And that's because we've got this giant file in here. So because it's stored internally, it's adding to the FMP12 file, and that's going to slow down your app over time. You might not notice it at first, but as you put more and more fields in there, or more and more files, it will slow down. If you look over here, we have the option, the limit of putting the limited size to put into a container field is 4 gigabytes. So if you're doing large your video files or other large files, that you can really bloat the size of the FMP12 file. We don't want that. So to keep everything fast, we're going to move it to external storage. And so let's go ahead and jump back over here. And I'm going to say save externally. And for now, I'm going to say secure. Actually, let's start with open storage. We'll see what happens here. I'll say OK. OK, transfer. And it says 1 was transferred. Now we'll notice where our folder is, RCC container demo. We have a folder, all my containers, and we have photos in there. We have a folder for the record number, and then we have the record itself, or the attachment itself. Now, when I close, let's go ahead and close this and open it back up. So you'll notice I closed the file and opened it back up to refresh the size of the FMP12 file. We went back down to 2.9. So that so switching to external moved that image from inside the FMP12 file to externally outside the FMP12 file, and reduced the size of the FMP12 file down to 3 megabytes, which is only about a quarter of the size previously. So you can really make your file smaller and faster quickly by switching to external containers.
We do have a question from David Angel real quick.
Yeah.
What determines the file name of the container when it is stored externally, not secure?
What determines the file name? So this is you'll notice when I dragged and dropped the file name, that was actually the next thing we're going to look at. So let's go ahead so right now it's set to open storage. And you can set the open storage however you want to define the location. So you can put more folders in here, subfolder. And then you'll notice I'm using primary key. So maybe if we had multiple container fields for one record, they'd all be put in a folder. And then it's taking, so we transferred that one, and you'll notice now we've got this subfolder. And then it takes the actual file name. So if we go to our demo folder, and there's the file name, RCC Let's Calvin Fly. And if we define over here, in the end, we put this colon, that will change the name of the file itself. And in this case, I'm putting the primary key in the front of it. Now, if I remove this, let's go ahead and remove this. Say okay, 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 transfer, and go back over here. Wrong folder. Let's go right here. You'll see that it because I didn't have that colon in there to change the name, then it reverts back to the original name of the file. So there's some neat tricks in there with using the calculation to specify the location that you can change the file name in open storage. Now, that said, normally you don't have, if your app is hosted, that external data source, that external container folder is not accessible to anybody. So usually I use secure storage. Let's go ahead and save it and transfer. And when we use a secure storage, you'll notice that this is really not, you can't really, there's the file, but because it's encrypted, you can't access it. And that's the most secure way of saving those external containers. So that kind of covers external versus internal
We have
containers.
a lot of questions.
And before we move to the next thing for performance, what are our questions?
Okay, so I will do Discord questions first and then Zoom questions.
Okay.
Can you turn on external on a file on server? Will it make a container folder?
So the short answer, so this is what I'm going to say. Right now, we have had problems. So short answer is you should be able to, but please don't. If we've had some problems with transferring going from internal to external when a app is hosted. So right now, the best thing to do is take it off the host, make that transfer, and then upload it back to the host. So right now with the current version, it's not that there's some bugs that we're running into doing that. But the next version of FileMaker 19.5 is going to have over 400 bug fixes, and we're really excited to see those improvements. Next question.
It's okay, safe to access a container file with an external program?
Well, as long as it doesn't mess with it and change it. So if we go here and say I'm going to go back to my open storage option, say transfer, okay. Now, I guess I could change the file itself, but if I change the name, I think that will break it. So now, because I changed the name, it's broken. Now when I put the name back, it should connect again. If I change anything in here, say it's record, that record, now it's broken again. And so it's really, you could access it with something else. I think you can even say, let me see if I can take a different folder or a different file. So I'm going to take this team file, and why isn't it letting me grab it? copy that here. We're going to take the name and put it in here. Just override this, replace. And so now when I refresh, so now it realizes that I messed with the field, and see it says tampered. So it's not, something's wrong. So you could access it, but I really wouldn't change it or make any adjustments to it. Now let me go see if I can put this, the original one back. I'll say replace. And will that recognize it? Okay, so it recognizes that it was the original file, but it knew when I took another file with the same name and put it in there, it knew it wasn't the right thing. And so if you have something else, another program interacting with those, you could run into issues. Any other questions?
Yes. From Zoom, then I'll go back to Discord. What if you want to store your images or containers in a cloud share like OneDrive or Dropbox?
Yeah, so you could have a so you could put them in. You can put them in FileMaker and have a script upload them to OneDrive or Dropbox or something like that, or you could put them in Dropbox. Sometimes what we'll have, if they're in a location like that, you can get a URL for the image and just save the URL in FileMaker, or have a web viewer in FileMaker display it. But that's kind of that would be another way of managing documents and attachments other than a container. But yeah, those options are possible, but then in that case, we're kind of switching from a container. One interesting thing, the only time I've ever had somebody hit usually you don't store really large files in FileMaker, or really large files in the container fields. The one time we've run into the 4 GB limit, somebody said they had run into the limit. I said, why are you putting a giant file in a 5 GB file in FileMaker? That's going to take forever to upload. But what they were doing is they were using a global field to actually temporarily hold a large video file before it was uploaded to a service. I think it was Dropbox. So this is a real limit, the 4 GB limit, and we can definitely, you are able to integrate with other platforms, upload attachments to other platforms like Dropbox, but that not necessarily is the same as using containers. Okay.
How are the external storage files created and named?
How are the external storage files created and named? So the file I had here, this is an image that was from a fancy camera, and we manually put in the name. If we look in here, we changed the name using this open storage calculation. And if you put something in here, you can say rename, let's say rename file, and you have to end it with this colon. So then it knows that you're renaming it. And now it will, and so here you can see our directory that we're using. We're going to say photos, primary key, and then the file itself. And I can say, okay. And that defined that location. If you do use, we'll see that change here, rename file, and then the file name. And you'll notice if you, that's only available in the open storage and for that option to rename it or name that directory. If it's secure, then it automatically encrypts that path, and it's not something that you would touch. Any other questions?
Yes. If I want to add a label to the photo in the container with Photoshop, will it mess with Claris FileMaker?
If you want to add a label in Photoshop, will that mess with like in before? I'm not sure what we mean by label. Would that be?
I assume like if you would somehow edit it inside of the container, but I don't think that's.
Yeah, so you could make a change in Photoshop and then put it in the container, like a label or whatever. But I don't think that would affect it. If we say, look at get container attribute here, these are some options that we have for pulling information out of the file itself. You can get the file name, storage type, and I'm not sure if there's a way to get the note. I know, if there's a label option from Photoshop. I know I had a client that saved notes in their files I think it was PDFs where Adobe was allowing them to put a note in the manually type a note that was saved in the file attributes. And I don't believe that FileMaker's get container attribute was able to pull that data, but we were able to use a plugin to pull that data. Nevertheless, you'd still be able to save it even if that has some different attributes. You'd still be able to save it in the container. Good question. Any other questions?
I think we might be good for now.
Okay, so the next option, or the next thing we want to talk about is for performance. So we talked about internal versus external containers for performance. The next thing we want to talk about is active, or the standard versus interactive containers. So we've got two container fields here that from the onset look like they're about the same, but they are not. Let's go ahead and use a different file and see what happens here. I'm going to take our PDF and drag and drop it right here. And you'll notice that we have you can see the entire first page of the PDF here on the left. But when I click on it, I'm not seeing any additional data. But if in the second one, I can scroll through it. So the container field on the right is an interactive container. That means you can interact with it. One thing though is there's some limitations to interactive containers, and it takes a lot of overhead for FileMaker to present the container in this way. So and there's some options, like for a video, that video could automatically start playing, or that the audio file might automatically start playing. And that could be a lot of overhead in having to start that video, start that audio playback. So interactive containers, they also don't work necessarily consistently across all platforms. So we try to avoid them more or less. For me, I feel like the best way I've got this container, this file saved in a container, and I have this script called view that will open it up in my default PDF viewer, and I can scroll through and look at it and then close it. Now, if this was an image, or if this was a different container or a different file, let's try something else. So here I got my demos. We got an awesome video right here. Now we'll see on the left, we only get a thumbnail, while on the right, I get a play button. If I play it, we get to see Rick dancing. So the interactive container lets us view that. But if I say open over here, or view, it's going to open it up in my default, what is this, MP4 player, which happens to be my screen capture app. So based on the system that you're in and your computer settings, it will know which app to open based on the file type. And that's defined if you're on a Mac that's per machine. That's not something that you can tell FileMaker necessarily knows, the system knows. And I believe we're saying open with. So right now it's telling it to open with monosnap, but I could select something else. But so we want to limit the use of interactive containers. Usually we'll put them on their own dedicated layout. If we're going to use them, we'll put them on a dedicated layout so that they don't slow the normal interactions with the app. Do we have any questions about interactive versus standard containers?
I don't see any interactive versus standard container questions yet, but I'm going to ask 2 more that popped up.
Okay.
Can FileMaker reduce the resolution of a picture added to a container? For example, a picture of high resolution changed to low resolution.
Yes, it can do that. So I'm not sure if Richard had that in here, but let's go ahead and take a look at that. Was the next question something more related to this?
The next question was about I think signature is it container, which I assume Dimok that you're asking, can you put signatures in containers?
Okay. So so let's do the signature question first, and then go to the resize, because
before you head there is an interactive container question now. So we'll do that real fast. How do you set up the interactive container?
Okay. So so here's our standard container, and you're going to do that. You're going to set up the interactive container in the data pane. So here on the right, we've got this data pane, and we can scroll down, and you'll notice that on my left container, we have interactive content, PDF, MP3, etc., not selected. We have images selected instead. If I select this container, you'll see interactive content is enabled. If I say start playback automatically, and this is really gonna, if it has its own dedicated, if it has its own dedicated layout, it's not as bad. But if you have start playback automatically and you're scrolling through records, it's gonna play back as soon as that record loads. So here we don't see any records. As soon as it loads, it's going to start playing, and and usually you want to control when that happens. Okay, so I'm going to disable that. So let's go to the signature, and I didn't really prepare for doing a signature. I believe a signature would be set up in here in a script. So I'm going to say signature. I'll say insert from device. So you can only save a signature from a mobile device, and you can specify that it's a signature. So insert from device, we need a title, signature, please sign here. And there's a few different options, the full screen, overlay, or embedded. I'm just going to leave it the default. That was the original one. I'll say okay. And you want to point it to a container. So we will point it to our container. Now I don't have this set up today to show this, because you need an iOS device to demo the signature capture, and I don't have that set up for us right now. But that's how it would be done. So so through a script that would capture that signature. Does that answer the signature question?
Yes, Dimok, let us know if that answers your signature question. If not, okay, we'll take another stab at it. Otherwise, I think you can go on to the other one.
The next one was, I believe, about resizing
yes, resolution.
Image. Now, yeah, the resolution. So I had this client who we wanted an image to appear on the screen to show who was logged in, and it would be there all the time. And then they said, why is this running so slow? And they were putting these giant 20 megabyte studio headshots in for their profile pictures, which was great. They all looked amazing. but the problem was it was much too, it was causing everything to run slowly. So we figured out a way that we could resize the file. So let's go ahead and here's our demo. We'll see we've got this 12 megabyte file here, right here, and we want to resize it. So I'm going to say resize. We've got a button right here already, resize as thumbnail. And what this does is just simply sets the field name and sets the field, the container field, and references the container field itself. And here we're using the get thumbnail function, which you point it to a container field, and then you just define the width and the height. And so here we're defining it as 400 by 400. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. We'll close it and say, let's go ahead and say resize. You see it flashed there. And we have so we temporarily, we saw two different records there. And I think that was just waiting for us to commit the record. When I committed it, then we saw the one disappear. And you'll notice now we're down to 42 kilobytes. So that allowed us to change the size to save space, or to make everything standardize the size. And you can even have this, because this is a calculation, you could even have the width and height defined by variables or defined by the user's specifications. So there's a lot of cool options we have there. So good questions. Any other questions before we move on?
Can I expect a performance improvement in the following scenario? Put the actual container field on single layout, use the get as thumbnail everywhere I want to just see the document exists.
Yeah, so good question. Actually in Nick Hunter's FM Gallery app, he does that, uses that exact same technique. And so what he'll do is he will have the master image, which is in the main container field, and then he'll have a few other containers that are called thumbnails. So thumbnail containers. So one resizes it to a medium size, one resizes it as really small, and then he references those smaller ones where he wants them displayed as a preview, and because it's already there, it doesn't have to, and it's based on the sizes he uses. The sizes he uses correspond with the sizes of the fields he's using. So FileMaker doesn't generate the thumbnails itself that it would cache. And so it makes the app run faster. Yeah, that's a good technique. Okay, anything else?
I think we're good.
Okay, so first thing we talked about was performance. Good ways to have to improve performance are using external instead of internal containers, and to use the standard container type versus the interactive. Or if you do use interactive, just make sure you have it on a dedicated layout or use it minimally. Working with data in containers. Okay, so we can put all of these files in the containers, but sometimes we will run into an issue with how a file is added to FileMaker and seeing a preview of it. So if I'm going to say add file, and I'm going to use the same image, and now I can't even see it. What happened here? So what happened was that I used the add file script, and it says go to field, and we're using insert file. Now you'll notice when I say insert file that I have options to select any of these files, which is nice. And if I go to my desktop, I can even select an FMP12 file, a PDF. That's great. But it kind of does this generic insertion and doesn't and you get this thumbnail. The other way that doesn't show us what the image actually is. And so if you have a server process that's inserting containers, that will come up with the JPEG thumbnail and not the image thumbnail. And so we want a way to refresh that. Also, if you're on Windows, it doesn't generate the thumbnails as like it does on a Mac. So we need a way to refresh this. So one way you can change it is to instead say add file, say add photo. And now you'll notice that the FMP12 file is disabled. So it's only letting me grab, and the MP4 is grayed out. It's only letting me grab images, PDF. I'll say OK on the JPEG. And now because it knew it was a photo, it generated that thumbnail here for me to see. And this can really be helpful to your users to kind of get a little preview of what's in the container. I was working with one client where it was critical that they had this. And they had a bunch of different files that could have really similar names and similar specs, but if they could just see that first page, that would help them know what the file was. And so it was really important to have that. So let's go ahead and we'll kind of switch back to it, just getting instead of the preview, we've got this image. Now we can, there are some scripts that will help us to refresh it. So in the previous way I said add photo, now I'm just going to use this refresh script. And that refreshed it. And the refresh 1 and 2 are essentially doing the same thing, but one is using a custom function and one is writing out long. So here to get the thumbnail to appear again, that preview, we have to use base64 encode and base64 decode. And that way, so here we are encoding the container, and then we're decoding the container and giving it the file name, its original file name that we're pulling from the container field itself. The other way to do this is to use this custom function called interactivate, and it's a lot shorter and it does the exact same process, but it's putting that all into a custom function to make it faster. So that is what we're doing here to handle those files that we can't necessarily see. Let's go ahead and try this with a PDF. Same thing, and we'll use refresh 2. This one was with the custom function, and that worked. Okay, so here we're going through the insert picture, insert audio or video. So I'm showing these things through scripts, but you can also say insert from these from the insert options. Let's see if that changed anything. We can say insert file or picture. Let's go ahead and insert something back in here. We'll go with the PDF. Refresh once again. So we can insert a PDF. And here is a list, and then insert file. We can insert all of these different files with the insert file option. And again, if we use insert file instead of insert image or insert PDF, then it doesn't give us that preview. Some quick notes. For QuickTime movie formats, insert as audio or video. Some formats such as QuickTime VR aren't supported. So there are some things that aren't supported. For the Windows Media videos, Flip for Mac must be installed on OS X or Mac OS. And FlashPics and QuickTime image formats are supported only for 32-bit version of FileMaker Pro. So now at this area, we're kind of getting into some real important details that might trip us up if we aren't aware of the limitations. We can export the container to, we can export the content of a container field to a file. You can also choose to automatically open or email the export file. And I do have that demoed here. We can say save to desktop. And I think this is already on the desktop. So let me just make sure that, okay, I'm going to delete this from the desktop and go back to FileMaker and say save to desktop. And we'll notice it appeared right up here once again. So we saved it to the desktop, and we can also say email, and it will pop up an email in your default email app and put it as an attachment. So I'll go ahead and don't save that. And so those are two options that we have for exporting. And I'll just show you, these are real straightforward. I'm just getting a temporary, for the send email, I'm saving it in the temporary directory, get temporary path. And then I am giving it the name that's already associated with the container. And then I'm just saying export. And in the export options, I'm saying automatically create email with the file attached. In the save to desktop, I have in here automatically open disabled. And when in open, I'm putting in the temporary path and I am having it automatically open. So we've got some few different options there for exporting the containers and viewing them right away, or managing them to put them in an email, or sending them or saving them on the desktop. Do we have any questions before we continue?
No, I think people are typing, but I don't see a question pop up quite yet.
Okay. So the interactive content for container fields. Interactive containers work with PDFs, audio, and video files. You'll notice when I put that image in there, it didn't really, you didn't notice a difference between the interactive container and the standard container, because it doesn't handle the images differently. For example, you can scroll through pages of the PDF, zoom in and out, and copy text. So here we're showing that we can zoom in, zoom out, and one interesting thing, I can highlight text and say copy. Now if I open text edit, say new, paste that in. So I pasted the text in, but so what if I want to copy the file itself? You can't copy the container file in the interactive container. You have to have a standard container where you select copy, or right click copy, and then we can paste that somewhere like, say, why isn't it letting me paste? Say copy and paste. It's not letting me paste. I'll put in container 2. Change that to a container. So I'm going to put I want to paste this container somewhere. I'll put container 2 on the layout, and there. So we can copy and paste at least into another container field. This covers how to set up the interactive container. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Working with audio and video files. Keep in mind when the start playback automatically option is selected in the inspector, the file starts playing when you display the record. If the option is not selected, you start playing the file by clicking on the play control. That's going to, if you have it selected to automatically start, it's going to slow things down, especially if you're just browsing quickly through records to find something. To delete the audio video file from the interactive container, choose the edit menu, context, click on the container and select clear or cut. So it's a little bit harder you can't just select and select. So here I can select Command X to remove it, or delete, and that clears it out. It's a little more difficult when you're doing with the interactive container. I'm selecting delete, selecting Command X. Oh, Command X actually worked. So but it wouldn't be a behavior that you would expect users to figure out. Working with PDFs. Keep in mind, working with PDFs and the interactive containers on Windows, be sure that a web browser plugin like Adobe Reader is installed on your computer. If it's not installed, the insert PDF will not be available. So when you're looking at these interactive containers for a PDF, it's taking into account making use of whatever PDF plugin you have on your computer. So you'll notice it behaves differently if Adobe Reader is your default PDF reader versus Preview being your default PDF reader. Note, you cannot copy a PDF while using Edit Menu Copy, which copies text from the PDF. So here, if I try to grab something and say copy, it's copying the text, not the file itself, which probably is what we would want. And once again, pressing delete isn't going to delete the file. When you don't have a shortcut menu or keyboard, you must use the edit menu on the menu bar. You can also add a button to insert a PDF into a field. For example, create a button, and that's what we have here with the add file and add photo. We're inserting those. We additionally have this clear button. I like having a way of quickly removing data from a container easily. So that's why we have this X button to clear it out. And you'll notice that all of these buttons gray out to show that they're no longer available. They won't work. Let's go back to, where did my demo folder go? And let's drop the team photo in here. Do we have any other questions?
We do, real quick. Adobe sometimes causes font craziness to replace English. Is there a fix instead of restarting? Like, is there some way that you can reload the container? I guess.
Yeah, so Adobe, it's causing, if I understand correctly, you're saying the Adobe plugin causes problems with the FileMaker text in the file itself, in the fields. Is that the correct problem? So there is a fix to this, and it has to do with, so there is a fix to this, and it has to do with deleting a specific file. And we've done a session on that before, and I didn't have that prepared. Every time this comes up, I have a how-to that I typed up, but we can provide that. I don't know the exact location of the file that you have to delete from Adobe, but there's a location that you just need to delete and then quit and restart FileMaker. Every time that happens to one of my clients, there's a panic mode, and I'm always real happy that we have a fix for it. Everyone goes into panic mode and they think everything's corrupted and bad, but it's just Adobe making things mess up a little bit.
Kyle noted that was usually an issue on Windows. The Windows specific issue, I think. The Adobe.
Yeah, I haven't seen problem. I haven't seen Mac do the crazy text for a while, not recently at least. Okay, let's keep moving. Now, this is the interesting part that I didn't really cover in my previous one, the other information, managing performance with thumbnails. Okay, we talked about having a separate container field to hold a thumbnail, to create a thumbnail, but FileMaker on the back end kind of manages thumbnails as well. To speed up the rendering of images in container fields, FileMaker Pro by default generates image thumbnails and caches them in memory. The container data can be embedded in the field or stored externally. FileMaker Pro encrypts the thumbnails that are in secure storage and that are embedded. You must have full access privileges to set options for thumbnails. So let's go ahead and check that out. So we'll go to File, Manage, Containers, and then Thumbnails. And so we have the option for permanent storage or temporary storage. What's the difference? So the container data can be embedded in the field or stored locally. So with the, we found the location, click the thumbnail tab. So what I want to note is here, temporary storage. Temporary storage caches in memory only. Each time the database file is closed, the cache is discarded. Now, if you're reviewing the same files a lot, every time you quit FileMaker and open it back up, it's going to have to regenerate those thumbnails, which could slow things down. If you use permanent storage, it caches on disk in addition to in memory. The on disk portion of the cache remains when the database file closes. So that's the difference between permanent and temporary storage. You probably notice this more so on a hosted app than on this with lots of containers than on this sample data. So sample file. So I'm going to say, okay. Things to note about the thumbnails. If generating thumbnails for temporary storage slows performance, change the settings for permanent storage. Thumbnails that are generated from an image that's either embedded or stored using secure storage are also encrypted in permanent thumbnail storage. So there's not a security risk there. So that's important. Just somebody getting access to the computer and figuring out where the thumbnails are stored, they won't have access to secure files. Thumbnails are cached in memory as well as on the disk of the host. When temporary storage is specified, thumbnails are never written to the disk. So that is never written to disk. That's good to note. The temporary storage cache is emptied when the application is closed. Once the temporary cache gets full, the least recently used thumbnail will be discarded. So we'll keep discarding the old thumbnails, and the most used ones will be left. When permanent storage is specified, thumbnails are written to disk right away. Permanent storage cache doesn't have a maximum on disk size, and permanent storage cache is not deleted when the application is closed. Since they're already generated and sitting there, it runs faster. Thumbnails generated from an image located under secure storage are encrypted. We said that. Thumbnail cache will stop growing when free space gets below 1 gigabyte. I had a client recently tell me, FileMaker keeps giving me this error saying low disk space. And I said, well, how full is your hard drive? And they're like, oh, well, it's 99.9% full. So that's our problem. So the thumbnail, if it's less than 1 gigabyte of space available, permanent storage will stop saving to disk. You can also restrict the size of a field inserted into the container. So let's go ahead and try this. We go to File, Manage, Database, go back to the container, and in validation, we can specify by kilobytes the maximum number of kilobytes. So let's try 1,000. Okay, say okay. Okay, and now when I put this one in, it's larger. The maximum size allowed for this container is 1,000 kilobytes. Please allow this invalid entry. I can say yes or no. I'm going to say no. Take a smaller one. No. Say 10,000 kilobytes. How about that? I'm not sure. I'll go back. Okay, so I'm going to go to Manage Database. Open up. Did something happen here? I'm going to quit FileMaker and reopen it. Something went It's weird here.
Having a moment.
Okay,
There we go.
let's try that once again. Manage database. There we go. Validation, let's try 10,000. And back to our demo photos. Let's try the team once again. That's our smallest image here. And so here it allowed us. Now let's try this one. And it says that it's too big. So we can, in the validation, we can specify how big the file should be allowed to be. So good options. The comparison of storage options. So here is just a table. You'll have this PDF so you can kind of read through that and see those options. Transferring between storage types. So so it kind of walks you through some ways of adjusting these. Script to export containers. We talked about exporting. We have a demo here for saving to the desktop. That's essentially what we're talking about when we say export containers. And that covers the additional information that Richard wanted me to add to my demo. Okay, containers are really great. It's the attachments and containers we use. Having those saved in FileMaker where with the data that they are associated with is really going to be helpful instead of having to hunt for their location somewhere else. And but you have to just understand where the trips might be, the hangups where that could make it slow. Okay, well, thank you all for coming and watching this demo about containers. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Yes, one last one. The permanent thumbnail storage. Is that a folder near the container folder inside or somewhere else?
Yeah, I think that's saved in the application support. So not somewhere. I'm not going to. I don't know where that's saved. I'll just admit that. Let's see. Thumbnails. I don't think it's saved in that same area. And I don't really want to give you some the wrong information. You might even be able to specify it. It's not specified. It's just saying on disk. I know I've seen on FileMaker server, but it's been a while where you could specify where the thumbnails had their own folder. And that was in the FileMaker server folder. But for these, I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll get back to you on that one.
Whoops. No other questions. I think we're good, Calvin.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.